That's number one. There shouldn't be any shame around people making a lot of money really fast. We need different financial instruments for the internet in order for people to do that. That can incentivize different things.
Avery, welcome back to Gen C, episode 88. So excited to have this conversation. We have an amazing guest, which a lot of
Lucky
relevant
88.
stories that we're going to talk about in a second. How are you doing?
I'm good. I feel like in Chinese culture, 88 is a very lucky, anything that ends in an 8 is lucky. It's auspicious number. So this is going to be a great episode, Sam.
It's definitely going to be a great episode. Related to our guest, Avery, which we'll talk about in a second, I was reading this piece, I believe from The Information, which said that the creator economy startups, like all the folks supporting the creator economy, have raised more in the first half of 2024 than all of 2023. So what was interesting to me is I sort of thought we were a little bit on the downswing because there were so many creator platforms that had come in, but it turns out more and more people are building and the creator economy is even more impactful than ever. So tell me about your thoughts of what does it mean that there's all this investment coming in? What are you hoping to see? And then how are you guys leveraging the creator economy to further your clients' needs?
So I'll start by saying I think creator means different things to different people. I think to a lot of people, and most would refer, when they're talking about creators, they're talking about what we formerly called influencers. Now influencers don't want to be influencers, they want to be creators. But creator is also a little bit more broad because a creator doesn't just have to be somebody who has a popular Instagram. It could also be an artist who is doing various creations. It could also be a writer. I think the definition of creator is broader, and that is also why you're seeing that definition applied in a broader sense. And I also think it's almost like a media platform, like creatorpreneurs are a thing now. Our good friend Jess Williams and her team are doing some really cool stuff around creatorpreneurs, whether it's Chamberlain Coffee or Feastables or all the zillion skincare, sunscreen, sock brands that are being launched by your favorite internet creators. And I also think that they even are blurring the line into talent, like how we would traditionally think about celebrities and talent. A lot of those are falling under the wide umbrella of creators. So I'm not surprised to hear that. And I think on the media platform side, actually, they're doubling down on it. That like, great, you should work with creators, whether they're the TikTok creators or they're the YouTube creators or any number of platform creators. I see this narrative really, the drum is beating strong on it. So I'm not surprised to hear that. And I also think increasingly anyone can be a creator. You're a creator, Sam. We're a creator. We have a podcast together.
We're doing it. It always just makes me chuckle when I think of like, I'll write tweets. I'm like, Mark Twain was a great creator. And then I'll get so much hate from people about like,
you love to be a contrarian.
I do. But it's interesting. I was at a dinner last week with a guy, a very, very successful investor, both in equities, but also he puts a ton of money into angel rounds. And he said for a lot of the brands he's working with that their biggest opportunities they've been seeing is all on the micro influencer networks that they've been seeing just crushing the results by exactly to your point, folks who have 2,000 followers, but then they get 100 of them. And the reach they end up getting, especially across all the different platforms, it's just like the best performing channel for us. So I totally think it's
man.
Right.
Let us get him on the podcast because
I'm not sure he wants to talk publicly, but we may need
the
to.
Truth. I completely agree with that. And I think in brand world, everyone has the conception of, oh, we have to like put all of our money behind this one celebrity and we're going to get 2 posts. And it's really clear it's an ad and there's going to be a lot of rights negotiation and all that stuff. If you are working with 100 small creators, even if they have 2,000 followers each, the magic there is that they are making the creative and distributing it.
And they're so happy to do it.
Yeah. And the creative, like if you negotiate to have the rights for it, say it's good, then you can put paid ads behind it. So I think it's super, super, super smart. And if you're a small business, growth business, I'm all in on that strategy. And the other thing is that it can like live on, in traditional deals, like, okay, you have the rights to this for 2 years, then you've got to take it down. On these creator ones, sometimes we do in perpetuity deals where it's like, okay, amazing, we have this. But I think the 1-2 punch of they're actually making a piece of creative and they're distributing it is highly underappreciated.
For sure. Avery, I need to give you credit because you and I had a conversation, I'm going to say 4 months ago, where I said, it's going to be at least a year, maybe 2 years before we're going to have a feature film made by generative AI. So you win. Because there's a movie that's just about to come out, and I'm going to say with a caveat, it's about Brian Eno. It's a documentary about the artist Brian Eno, the musician. And what they did is they filmed 500 hours of content with him. And they tagged the entire thing. And then generative AI makes the movie new every single time it shows.
That's cool.
So it's using it actually as a production technique, not as the actual creative itself. But I would say it is still the first feature film Gen AI movie. So you win the battle. But it was interesting because just thinking about the idea of filming 500 hours in order to get your like 65-minute documentary does mean you have to do so much production to get there. So it also kind of made me think, how much harder are we going to have to work to get these generative AI films to be actually good? Any thoughts on the Gen AI production process?
Yeah, we're deep in it right now on a couple of things, which is very exciting. I think that Gen AI, people are overestimating it in the short term, underestimating it in the long term. I've sort of shared that viewpoint. But the production use cases, whether it's, Runway is amazing, and Sora is also impressive, and Google is building something, and Facebook is building something. And I think we're going to see a lot of movement on that just because we know people are consuming video more than ever. And like the image generation, like it's cool, but now people are like, what's that new? And I think video is that new. So I'm pumped for it. And I'm not surprised. I think a lot of people are playing around. Pika Labs, like there's just a lot of people playing around in this space. Runway is the leader at the moment, but that could change very quickly, especially as I anticipate these platforms, the social platforms are just going to build it into what we already use. Like
That's
we're
right.
already seeing TikTok do that with like Symphony, and I think others will follow suit.
Amazing. Well, it also relates to our guest. So, Avery, our guest today, Liz Hagelthorn. Liz is the CEO and the founder of Smarter License, which is like really a two-way marketplace for creators to actually license an individual piece of content or a whole content library, set parameters, rules, etc., and have a legal handle for them. And then on the other side is a marketplace where you can find any piece of content you like on any platform, and literally it'll generate like the email and the offer to the creator that says, hey, I want to license your piece of content. I'm interested in paying you X, Y, and Z. And it starts the negotiation. So Liz is really smart. She's been in the meme game forever. She started on the internet when she was really, really young. She'll tell us about that. But after the break, we'll be back with Liz, a really fascinating conversation. We'll see you soon. All right, welcome back. We are here with Liz Hagelthorn. Liz is the founder and CEO of Smarter License, which is an amazing company we're going to talk about in a second. But really, Liz is one of the OG meme queens. We're going to learn all about her work within the meme ecosystem. She's had such a career in that, things we can and cannot talk about. Liz, tell us, well, first of all, welcome to Gen C. Love to see you here. Tell us about you, about Smarter License. Like, what's the problem that you're trying to solve? Just give us the whole thing.
Thank you for having me, Sam and Avery. I'm so happy to be here. Well, first off, I've been making money online since I was 13 years old. So before there was ever a YouTube, I had a beauty blog with my mom where we made money on link affiliates where we were recommending beauty products using a WordPress blog. So as far as the trajectory of how I've learned how money and the internet works, it started very, very young. It's a little bit about me. I was doing that when I was really young, worked at Twitter for 4 years, started growing anonymous meme pages on Instagram, ended up running a network of 127 pseudonymous, anonymous meme accounts on Instagram, totaling 300 million followers, reaching 1.6 billion organic people a month, mostly 13 to 24-year-old age range. Pages included girl, comedy, funny memes, foodies, you name it, just across different industries and sectors. Ultimately sold the network in under 2 years to a record label. And during that time, what I really realized, obviously with memes and the issue that it brings up is one, the only real path to making money as an online content creator is custom ad deals, which is incredibly taxing. There's all of this great content being made on not only on pages, but on distribution platforms like YouTube, Instagram, X. And there was a real problem with rights and usage, especially when it comes to remixing content and storytelling. The internet's really run on two things. One is seeking the new and creating the new. And a lot of times creating the new means remixing on top of other things. And so we were dealing with this issue of lack of monetization opportunities on the IP that was created in the memes that we owned outright. Like the incentive structure was really around pumping a lot of organic content in order to offset advertising deals, which is incredibly, of course, taxing on burnout. There's only so much content you can get out before you have to sort of offset that organic with paid. And then on top of that, a lot of the pages were at a lot of risk for takedowns and copyright takedowns, given the rights and usage. So we weren't able to leverage a lot of the high performing IP we wanted to for the pages to grow the pages. And so that's really where the idea for Smarter License was born. Smarter License was born out of the idea that how are we going to create the next IP portfolios for artists that they can earn money on the usage and the rights of their content versus the distribution of their pages? And like, what does that look like? Of course, right now, that looks a lot like frictionless licensing platforms like Shutterstock or a Premium Beats or a Beat Marketplace. But really, we're looking at that for all file types, all types of IP, likeness, voice, images, video, podcasts as really mechanisms to be able to remix and also build IP portfolios around those. So that's, Smarter License provides frictionless licensing options for all types of IP.
Wow, Liz, you just said a lot there. Let's start off with the 13-year-old WordPress blog with affiliate links. Affiliate links
Yeah.
are back, baby. Do you have a TikTok shop?
That's true.
Yeah, no, I do not. I do not currently.
You should mess around with it. What's old is new. But let's also, really interesting story. I think you've been such a big part of the wave of how to make money on the internet, and you talked about a couple of different ways. And from the brand side of things, meme pages can be amazing because there's so much engagement, but it also can be such a huge risk from a rights and ownership, and everyone's always trying to report. So it seems like the problem that you're solving is one that creators have, but also brands have. So let's break this down into a couple of components. You have brands who are looking to license IP from creators, and creators who want more reach and monetization for their content. How do you sort of serve as that partner in the middle so that each side can work with Smarter License?
Yeah, there's a few ways. Of course, there's just the typical ability to list and license any piece of work. So you create something, you want to license it out, you want to choose the rights, you want to choose your own price. You might have exclusions, you might have prior brand deals. We're kind of like entering into a new era where what's protected by typical copyright doesn't extend to all of the value that a human being or like a piece of art might cover. This might be tone, this might be data. Like there are things outside of what is typically protected by copyright and IP law. So of course we need to basically serve the creator side, the seller side with a ton of tools, and also providing comprehensive license options so you can choose which rights do you want to use in advertising. Do you want to use it for AI training? Do you want to use it for social media use, website? Basically providing comprehensive good legal work is like number one, very key. And then of course there's a ton of tools for buyers, like making offers on content that they see. For example, the Premier League, they were looking to extend digital distribution of their matches, and they really were seeing that a lot of TikTokers were acting as match commentators on TikTok, highlighting games, talking about games. And they wanted to build relationships with these TikTok match commentators that they previously didn't have, and also test out the content leading into matches. So what they did was they went out and offered to acquire the rights to a ton of match commentators across TikTok who were already using their IP, right, as a green screen in the background. But what they really wanted to do was, one, build a relationship. Like at the end of the day, licensing is really just a digital collaboration that allows you to enter into new markets at a really low cost. So for them, it's like, okay, now we can collaborate with different audiences and also the creators on already high performing content. Like we already know this works, so why aren't we just using this? And so that's exactly what they did. They used the TikToks in promotional material. In 10 days, they grew a audience, or sort of like a little Gen Z community of 11,000 fans. They slashed their advertising costs by 80% because the content worked really well on TikTok. It was native to the platform. It was already proven to work well. And then in addition, in real time, they were looking across the internet for trending content and then programming that in real time into their halftime, leading to 100% audience retention. Because as people were talking about the match, they were going out and acquiring the rights and plugging that in. So it's both sides as far as the tools, because at the end of the day, Premier League, for example, is a major rights holder, but they're also in this instance like acquiring rights from creators. So it sort of trickles down, which is exciting because it means anyone at any time can get discovered for the work that they're doing and then establish a relationship maybe with a larger brand or larger conglomerate.
Absolutely. And, I think it's really interesting because we're in Olympic season right now. It's like, yeah, they're the rights holder, but guess what? They might not be the creators of the viral TikTok that features something that happened in the Olympics that features something that happened in the Premier League. Like it might be somebody who overlays something and turns it into a meme. That's what goes viral. I've been thinking about that a lot in the context of the rights owners in Olympics right now, because I anticipate the most viral piece of content from the Olympics are not going to be coming from the Olympics right holders.
But that's exactly right. Like basically memes are just reformatting the same message with a different format. So when we look at memes, there's sort of three things they consist of. One is the format. What's the format they're
Meme
in?
queen is going in. Yes.
No,
Great
like,
contrast.
no, I
Bring
mean, it's
it.
right. Like that, but that's right. That's right. It's like, okay, well, not everyone has the one, they don't have the access to watch the Olympics, right? But they're watching highlights and clips on social. So what's the format? Is it a 30-second video? Is it an image? How are they getting that information? Then there's like the underlying content. What is the clip of? Who's in it? Is it a clip of the Olympics? Are they allowed to use it? Is it some, kind of a tweet reaction? Is it a screenshot? And then there's like the actual message. What is the person who created this saying? Who are they speaking to? And that is sort of endless as far as being able to reach people. So memes really just serve as a kind of like, if the analogy is like if you were a mama bird and you were chewing up a bunch of content and spitting it back out to your baby birds, like you're essentially you're changing out the format. Sometimes you're changing out the content, but the message always sort of remains the same as far as like who's behind it, or maybe it's a different perspective. And those are the things that we sort of look at as far as differentiating the space.
But a creator has different permission to talk about the Olympics than like the NBC or something. Like that's right. Like they might use more colloquial language. They might say like POV, like this is the only thing interesting that I've seen today. They have a permission, which then makes it relevant and then ultimately gets that original piece of content distributed more, which is why I think your product is so genius.
Thank you. Yeah, and of course, the reading, what we call that is like reading comprehension levels. You'll see a ton of, if you go on YouTube and you look at how to write a script for YouTube, you'll see so many different tools that teach you how to take your existing script and talk to a 12-year-old, or like take your existing script and talk to a 9-year-old. Because at the end of the day, we're scrolling so fast, we actually spend 80% longer on something that we hate or we don't understand. And so when the algorithm says, oh, Liz, it doesn't know if you love or hate something, right? So like it doesn't understand that I'm spending some time longer on something I might not like. I'm not going to engage with
Just doom
it,
scrolling
right?
all day long.
Yeah. But then if I'm engaging, it means I really like it. So you really have, like, if it's something positive, you really have to get that comprehension level down to reach the most people that you can, unless you're spreading like doom scroll, and which I don't recommend. It's bad for your soul if you're making memes about hate.
Liz, I want to ask you, because you have spent so long in this, and you mentioned, at one point having 300 million people following all these different accounts that you were doing. I think we have a lot of conversations here and brands in general about how to have an effective meme strategy. And I think most of them seem to get it wrong. Like they think it's copying the creator or copying the meme that's really popular. So I guess, what did you learn about like how to spread messages, how to codify success into a strategy that like brands themselves who often listen to this show could take away?
Well, one is owning the entire content outright, because like you could get in a lot of trouble if you're just, even we just saw yesterday, I think it was 14 basketball teams have been sued because they were using songs that they didn't own. I mean, down to the song overlay, right? If you're a commercial interest in your brand or your meme page and you're making money from your page, that just puts you in like a totally different bucket of liabilities that you just have to pay attention to. Of course, if you're monetizing through NFTs, that does count. That is commercialization. So you just have to be mindful of trademark and copyright and IP and stuff like that. That's number one. Number two is, of course, volume. So how quickly can you scale? And really how you set that is formats. You have to create some type of format that's really unique to you and your audience that you're building. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to be up there on a podium just blasting memes all day. You really want to understand how you can use the internet to bring people together and use the internet to create connection. And then from the connection, you can be creative from that, right? It's a feedback loop. It's not linear television. You're getting constant feedback, whether it's likes and attention, or it's comments, or it's DMs, or feedback from your friends. I mean, the creative process is like very feedback based more than ever before. And then also for brands too, like as far as formats, like understanding that the people who are following you and as your customer base, like they're not really looking to be sold to. Most of the time, they might be looking to learn something, to connect with people, to laugh, figuring out what are the things that people are seeking, what novelty are people seeking from your page, different points of view. But it really does boil down to specific formats being very unique to your own identity and your own IP. Of course, there's the text-based format, video, but it goes down to like, what are the slides like for each format? How long are the text on there? Like down to the colors that you're using. I mean, you're basically building a brand yourself when you pick a meme format.
But I guess like I want to break this down a little bit more because I think,
Yeah.
yes, understanding macro format for sure.
Yeah.
But I think about like, I mean, the one that pops into my head is the amount of people who use offset on his phone, that photo, right? And then or like the guy whispering to the girl at the basketball game, and then just like putting context to that, which because like memes speak for all of us in many ways. And those are things obviously a brand would have to license in order to use those successfully because those are images that somebody owns. But is it as simple as like, hey, let me just go out and do a photo shoot of things like that? And therefore I have endless license to my own stuff? Or is it about try to understand culturally why things take off and then trying to like play the game of the meme with your audience?
Yeah, I think that's a part of it. I think people who could do that part really well are what sets a lot of people apart. But there are like kind of 4 things that we look at. Is the template easy to remix? So for example, on TikTok, one of the biggest methods of discovery is sound-based action trends. So when you click into that little sound, you're looking at how many videos were made per sound. A lot of times you can tell with the sound, like how easy was it for the creator to make something with that sound? Are people using their food in that sound? Are people using their pets? How many frames are there? How complicated is it to understand? Is it easy for someone to just quickly get it and move on? Like you said, offset with the phone. Like that's a really easy, everyone's on their phone, super easy. The second is like a universal experience or emotion. Can a lot of people relate to this, or at least in the conversation? Third, what's the point of view? Where's the text playing with each other, right? Is there text over the phone? Is there text on offset? Like you said, what's the intertextual analysis is like what we call, like, is it easy to understand how the objects are talking to each other because we're overlaying text on them and we're assigning new values to those objects. So in the instance of offset in the phone, it's like we're giving context, intertextual, onto the phone. We're giving context onto offset. And then the fourth, most importantly, is relevance to culture. So, Harry Potter memes is a great example of this. You know each of the houses that each of the stars of the show are in, right? Gryffindor, you know exactly what that brand of that house is. You know exactly what role Harry plays. So it's like, what's the relevance to culture? And do a lot of people recognize the person or understand the context so their brain doesn't have to do a lot of the thinking of like, who is that person?
I'm a Hufflepuff. I'm just going to throw that out there. But Avery, let's bring the Vayner practice in here, right? Because you guys work with a million different brands. You guys create a lot of very relevant pop culture type assets for those brands. How much are you also looking at those same types of patterns that Liz was talking
Here's
about?
our favorite move right now is actually commenting, because as the brand, there's so much around rights and around potentially canceled. And sometimes it's weird for a brand to do memes. Like if you're Chipotle, it's cool and everybody thinks it's funny. If you're Duolingo, and we get to work with some of those brands too. When you're JP Morgan Chase, when you're Visa, like they're not, like each brand has their own persona of how you want to represent. And some of our luxury brands, like they don't want to make a meme, but when Don Julio Tequila comments on a meme, that's cool. And that fits in nicely. So we have a big strategy around commenting as creative. It's for certain brands, we're all in on memes and we do a lot of that. Wingstop's one where we've done a lot of like really funny memes that go really viral, and that's great. But I think every single brand should be commenting on the right memes, right? The ones that make sense. The ones like you should have a Pepsi without whatever it is with a funny comment. And one that we recently did for Duracell, which is like, if you think about Duracell, like they're just not a brand who is going to be like leading the charge on memes, right? Especially for who their target audience is, which is very heavily into like young moms who are buying batteries for their kids' toys, etc. So when the Real Housewives, debacle was happening with Ariana and her husband, ex-husband, he had a very famous clip that said like he had to do everything. He had to buy the paper towels, he had to buy the batteries. And actually Duracell, like we commented just something funny. And that comment went insane, got like millions of engagements immediately. And we're like, okay, let's lean into this. We did a campaign. The reason I bring up that example is, and then we did a campaign with Ariana. She said, I buy my own batteries now and I prefer Duracell. And there was a few little like jokes in there of like, they last 12 years, not 10, because she was their ex for 10, and little inside bits. The reason I bring that up is because I actually think that not every brand has to be in memes, but has to be in pop culture in the right moments. And commenting is such an underappreciated way to participate in those moments, even if you're like, oh, I don't know about the rights. I don't know if I want to do that. Are people going to respond well if it's coming from this like authority brand? And does that even undermine my credibility as like a financial institution if I'm going so colloquial? But commenting almost always makes sense in certain contexts. So that's what we love for memes. And then for brands who have the permission or who want to lean in or who want to go there, it's huge. If you look at Mug Root Beer, which is purely organic social, it's all memes. It's all like leaning into like internet trends. And the fun part is that we've seen a really positive impact on their business. So I'm a big believer in memes and of finding ways for brands to engage with them, whether it's directly through creators, commenting, doing their own. There's so many different ways to do it. But Liz, we're here to hear from you.
I mean, wait, I love that. Wait, but I love that because, everybody comments on stuff, right? So like the universality of that approach is very human and accessible as far as seeing like that's a very founded on an element of surprise. Like, oh, I didn't expect that brand to comment there in a way that's like really accessible because like they're just down in the comment section with the rest of us. And
right.
That fundamentally, that element of surprise is and like surprise and delight is sort of like, well, everybody comments and now like Duracell's down here commenting with us. Like,
exactly.
That's amazing, right? Like, it's amazing. It's like put them in the audience. We're saying the same thing. I think that's right. That's right. I can see why.
Thank you. Well, a blessing from the meme queen is
Yeah.
it's something that we're obsessed with right now because for a lot of our brands, we're trying to make them relevant in pop culture and relevant in culture and social media. And we've also seen those brand memes that are like, it's so cringe that you don't want that. So let's get your perspective back to sort of what you've learned here at Smart License. Any brand could, in essence, find a piece of content they like and propose an offer to the original creator. Is that how it works?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, we have a bunch of different tools as far as like asset collection and rights. We have a tool where you can collect a ton of content into a repository system and accept it. We have offers. We have the idea being that there's sort of these anatomy of transactions across the internet and those change and they flow. And so we just have to do basically a ton of different tools that assist in the anatomy of those transactions, depending on who's sort of initiating it. One day it might be a brand, another day it might be a creator. Those roles are interchangeable, but yeah.
So, but vice versa. It's like I could say, hey, Liz created a piece of content. I'm just going to use Smarter License and it'll generate an email to send to Liz or to contact her to say someone wants to license it. Do you want to accept? And then on the flip, Avery could be an artist or a musician who says, hey, I'm going to set parameters for how people can license my content. And then I can actually push that out to anyone who's inquiring with me.
Yes. Exactly.
Okay, so the model seems, I mean, it's a great two-way marketplace, which I love. The model, and you hinted at this earlier, but I did want to ask you, the model of what Avery was talking about, the Olympics, right? Someone is going to make that amazing meme where like, here's a diver diving in, but then it's going to be their coffee cup and they're going to drink it, because they're going to like do a stitch or an edit. What happens when a piece of the video on TikTok is owned by the Olympics and then a piece is owned by the creator? That feels like it starts to get really complicated. Are there any solutions for that? Or is that just like, hey, avoid things that have too many other creators in them?
Yeah, no, they have to own the media outright. So the whole idea is we want to foster an environment where creators are like actually making things from scratch as far as like their own owned and operated content. Of course, there's a ton of freedom of expression and First Amendment stuff that artists get that maybe like a brand wouldn't get. With the Olympics, their rights are really locked up. That's a very, very strict case. But as far as artists goes and like different formats go, I mean, we're really trying to essentially foster this sort of, what does the next Mr. Beast look like in the age of AI? What is the next, his format's very specific. You recognize his format almost immediately. It's like, an airplane for $1 to an airplane for $1 million. What does that experience get you? Even Gary Vaynerchuk, like his format's so specific, but the incentive structure of the internet like is kind of opposite of that, right? Where it's not really incentivizing this format specific stuff. So really it's more in the realm of like, you've created something from scratch and you own it outright and you should be able to build valuable IP portfolios from that earn you money. In most instances, for example, like take patents. Patents, only 3% of all patents ever owned or ever earn more than $1. So there's 97% of patents are earning $0. So imagine what it's like for creator IP where there's no economic trigger into the formats that they're making or any of the creative work that they're doing. I think we're also obviously entering into an age of AI and where more people are
Yes, you
going to
went
be
there.
yeah, like more people are going to be able to create faster and quicker. And so we should acknowledge those new formats, those new storytelling in a different way. I always say this in a similar way where .jpeg and .png allowed us to edit and share print photographs. Like, what does that look like in the next 5, 10, 20 years? And how do we build a system where everyone can economically flourish and reach the people that they want to reach with their messages?
So you've done a lot of work looking into how AI can unlock opportunities for creators. How
Yes.
exactly do you see that future you just outlined happening? Like, are there some things that you see in the works right now or more of a midterm solution?
Yeah, there's a few things. One, I think interoperability of data sets is key. So we've just come out of an era where on social media, it's sort of like you post somewhere and it lives there and you can't really change it out to any other platforms or engage with any other tools. So we need to look at sort of data set creation, the things that are powering the AI in the background, whether it's your proprietary IP, whether it's the way you train a model, whether it's your voice or your likeness, as almost like the same way you would think of an Instagram post or a meme. Like those things need to be transferable into different AI tools across the ecosystem. That's number one in order for anything, because otherwise you're going to have to keep recreating those with every single tool you try, which just sounds exhausting, quite honestly. That's number one, of course, interoperability of any data set creation. The second is obviously creatives learning how to code, learning how these things are trained, sort of a hybrid of creativity, being able to turn that into talking to the computer, right? You can talk to audiences. Can you talk to a computer? And can you make the computer run in the way that you want it to run to scale your creativity? I've been trying to replace my job ever since I was 13, So like, I'm like, please take the parts of my job that I can replicate so I can start to work on cooler stuff. I think when we start to have creatives solving these type of problems, ultimately the things that can be made are super cool. So that's the second piece of this is like creatives really like embracing and understanding technology deeper than just posting on it and using it, but like actually building it.
Okay, but I want to go a little like specific based on
Yeah.
on this conversation. So I'm going to pull behind the curtain a little bit. Liz, you and I were both on a conversation soon after we had met, where we were both on the same call with a very well-known author and who also has a very significant social presence. And what you were sort of talking him through was this idea that like you could license the style in which he tweeted, the style in which he posted, because a lot of people would like use his tweets to then repost them because they were like meaningful for them. And he also has a dozen, 15 books out there as well. So you have this giant bank of assets that he's not like, I want to license the book rights or I want to license this specific tweet. He's like, I want to license in the style of me. And then,
Right.
and you at the time were doing so much training, I think testing of like different, how do you train an AI to tweet like X person or to create an image like Y person? So are you foreseeing this idea like in the future where Smarter License really allows Gary Vee to say, oh, you just want to like license how I roll, but not any of the content itself?
100%. But the content is there as like a base layer, just FYI. So the content
Yes.
kind of serves as a base layer. And then you sort of have these rules and parameters that are observed as a data set or talked about as a data set around that source layer. But I'll give you an example that we can talk about in real terms. So I used to run a page called Girl, GIRL, on Instagram, 7 million followers. It was anonymous. Nobody knew it was me. Most of the time it was 13 to 17-year-old girls. The page was a lot of like quote based that I would write, and I would Photoshop those quotes about love and relationships onto billboards with the strategy that this was things that teen girls felt that they wanted to say, but they couldn't say. So they wanted to share it. That was sort of the strategy of the page. As I was running the page, one thing that was really important is these creatives with large audiences, like whether it's the author we're talking to, or it's the folks at Vayner, or it's Girl, they have incredible consumer insights on what their audiences really want from them. So with Girl, one of the things I would always get a lot of questions around, I really like my crush, but I don't know how to tell them. My crush knows I like them. They don't know I know that they know. And it was just like a lot of like very anxious teens basically being scared to advocate for their feelings. And from that, what I did was I created a content series called Secret Admirers, where I'd be like, send me your crush's handle, send me a message. I'm going to post it and I'm going to tag them and be like, you have a secret admirer. And you can imagine like what that would do for a teenager. It's like, oh my God, like someone likes me, like that feeling of specialness. And so when I was playing around just with AI tools, I was like, okay, how would girls' IP be extended into, like, what would girl do with AI? What would her IP kind of be extended to? And so what I started doing was training models, one, around the advice I would give. Two, I would create these data sets around sort of shyness and confidence levels, like 1 to 5, because a lot of girls, like, if they're really shy, I want the model to sort of replicate that. And then 3, what do I want? Yeah, like what do I want the model to like do? What I basically trained it on and created some data sets around was being able to synthesize text messages, give insight into what the other person might be thinking, potential responses, being really empathetic to listening to the end user, matching the tone of voice, just like these really, really crystallized and clear strategies that I'm able to do only because I had years and years of talking to teen girls through this sort of big sister tone and voice and extending that. And I think that's sort of like a limitless, unlimited possibility of helping people and extending IP into the future is, well, what would this kind of person or persona do? And like, how would it help people? Why would someone come and use this thing? And that exercise alone, I think, is really powerful for especially creatives to think through.
Liz, we could probably sit here all day talking to you about memes. As you can tell, we're both very passionate around this topic. And clearly so are you. And it's amazing to hear how you've sort of you've evolved with the internet to find new ways to monetize and add value, and also to create across sort of multiple different mediums. And I know you were at Consensus, you were talking about memes and monetization. I thought you had a really interesting take on the value of memes as it relates to meme coins, creator payouts, et cetera, and how crypto and influencer accounts are basically the same game. Can you explain a little bit about your philosophy there?
Yeah, a few things. Like one, I don't think there's any shame in wanting to make like a lot of money really fast. That's number one.
I agree, by the way.
I think a lot of people want to make a lot of
Plus
money
one,
really
why
fast.
do I work at an advertising agency? Tell me the answer,
Right?
someone.
Like if
Right.
you're the creator, so it's like, net 30, net 60, net 90, that's not fun. And it's really hard to build a business on that, especially a legacy business. And so that's number one. It's like there shouldn't be any shame around people making a lot of money really fast. We need different financial instruments for the internet in order for people to do that. And like that can incentivize different things. The other thing I'll say is, notice how like I didn't run one page. I was in charge of a network of 127 pages. So the algorithm sort of works like this: is it works essentially like you have the thing that you post, but really what's most important is those other people and pages that are boosting around the network effect. And so when I was listening to Rep Mankind talk about Turbo and how he had sort of 50 or so original people who staked in the coin before it went live, and kind of looking at meme coin data and looking at the role of the people who are staking as almost like your network effect of like, here are people who are invested in the performance of this particular coin. Like take the financialization sort of out of it for a second, just because this isn't financial advice. But if you have 50 people who are there ready to like, comment, repost, support, make memes, that is sort of the same game, because you're basically looking at, okay, you're trying to hit at a certain time frame, like how much of the conversation is driving the success of the post. Like I would be able to post on Girl and tell you within 3 seconds if it was going to go viral or not, because I knew how many likes I needed per second. That was about 1,000. So if it was getting about 1,000 likes per second.
1,000 likes per second? Wow.
I've never gotten that per second.
Yeah. Organically, of course, like organically. I knew that it was going to be able to get to 1 million impressions within an hour. So I could start to be able to replicate that and try to figure out if I knew something wasn't performing well, I could pull it down, restart, pull it down, restart. That feedback loop is super important. So I was like, oh, it's sort of the same game, because you have these sort of stakeholders there. Maybe it's 50 people, 100 people who are invested in your success. Maybe it's different because like they don't own a bunch of meme pages with you, but they do have an audience and they are invested in your story, and they were helping him tell his story and following along Rhett's journey. So I just couldn't help but make the parallels because they were really obvious to me, but maybe it's just like in my brain. like that way.
No, but Liz, you had really gotten down to the fact of like, the amount of time, money generated, all of this stuff had sort of had some interesting equity to like a popular creator and how that same effect, I guess, had
Yeah,
come
Avery, I'm
across.
curious too, because you're working ads. The way that these meme coins talk is really similar to CPMs. Like it's 0.001, it's 0.014. Like these numbers, these are advertising CPM numbers for the most part. And I'm curious your thought. I'm actually like, curious what you think.
Yeah, I think the format is similar, but I can say, at least for the brands that we work with, certainly none of them are playing in the meme coin space. That's more like
Yeah.
an extracurricular hobby, I would say, for me. But yeah, it's a lot of the same, right? And it's also optimizing of this is going to work. This is what we can do to juice it. Like here's okay, it's almost like a decision tree. If this happens, then this happens. Here's what we know is the formula, right? But if you just follow the formula, you're never going to break through. So you got to do something a little different. I think there are a lot of parallels actually to biddable digital media.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is very similar to like a royalty payout that we used to see on some of the marketplaces. Like these, it's not a mistake that those kind of numbers in which we play with are like pretty similar across industries as far as whether it's advertising
Yep.
CPMs, royalty payouts on streams, and then now we see meme coins. So like everything just kind of replicates in its own way with its own different
It's a
sort of
familiar
distribution.
format.
Yeah.
Amazing. Liz, also, by the way, were you a lawyer? You know so much about like all of this
No,
stuff.
I've just gotten in trouble a lot.
Okay, good. Well, you put that knowledge to good use. Liz, thank you so much for joining us on Gen Z. This was a fascinating episode and really fun to get to know you. And can't wait for our listeners to get a chance to hear your wit and wisdom.
Thank you so much for
Absolutely.
having me.
Yeah, we'll put your handles down in the show notes. Everyone should definitely follow Liz and follow Smarter License. They're doing some amazing work. But yeah, Liz has always been like my go-to when I need to like have a meme explained or like why something is trending. She is always on the forefront of that. So
Yeah,
definitely
Sam,
worth a follow.
if you want to license out my girl training data on dating advice, let me know. It's on
I'm going to
Spider-Verse.
apply that to CoinDesk. We're on it. Yes.
I have a full data set. Okay, thank you guys.
All right. Thanks, Liz.
I can't believe that Liz wasn't a lawyer because it seems like she knows a lot about copyright and rights in general. That was a really great episode, Sam. Thank you for setting this up.
Yeah, no, I met Liz a couple of months ago, and I literally jump on the phone and we'll spend an hour just with her explaining something to me, and it might be like why this image of an orange went viral, or it could be like or it could be like the machinations of understanding the analytics behind these things.
There's
And it's
so
just
much craft behind it. People think like memes
Yeah.
are just random, that social media is just random. It's not random. You need to understand it
Yes.
in order to succeed in it. And, hearing how Liz has been like a extremely online person since she was 13 years old, you start to understand the trends and the patterns that ultimately allow you to ride like the subsequent waves of the internet. So I thought this was a fascinating chat. Gen Z, I hope you all enjoyed it as well.
Absolutely. All right, Gen Z, we'll see you next week.